Hello, hey everybody. Welcome to Common Censored. I'm Lee Camp, joined by Eleanor Goldfield.
Hello.
And this is the show where we talk censored stories and people, sensible solutions, and common ground movements to fight and build.
And sometimes other stuff.
We come to you every week with all of this.
Except sometimes.
And sometimes other stuff.
I just stole your line.
Yeah, but we're far less except sometimes than my Moment of Clarity videos.
Well, that's because you do that shit like every damn day. I don't even shower every day. I don't even understand how you can do that shit every day. It's
I was
remarkable.
wondering what that smell was, but we're going to keep going anyway.
Save water, Lee. Wash yourself in beer.
We're going to keep going anyway. We come to you from Washington, D.C., the latest American war zone. We did not know we would declare war on ourselves.
Have you seen... Have you seen the tweets, or it's like a meme, and it's like, unfortunately, due to the pandemic and travel restrictions, the U.S. had to invade itself.
Yeah, It was like had to coup itself.
The one I saw was invade itself.
Yeah.
But, you know, whatevs.
Due to travel restrictions, we just kept the battle here at home. There are now something like 25,000 National Guard troops within a span of about a mile and a half or something between the White House and the Capitol. Just about every street is blocked off, and you have to show ID and shit. And that is more troops than in Iraq and Afghanistan combined right now for America. So it's also a great super spreader event. If you've seen the photos of National Guardsmen and women sleeping on the floors of Congress, that just seems like a great super spreader event.
Also, quick, just something to note for folks who either know of folks that might be out and about. There are checkpoints, and yes, they're checkpoints. It is the occupied territory of the Piscataway people, and it's gotten much more militarized in the past week. So there are checkpoints where they can demand that you show ID in order to get beyond that checkpoint. And these are like, if you look at like Secret Service, or I even think like Park Service, they've got a map up and it shows you the various checkpoints. And there are like dozens of them around downtown.
It looks like DC, because it's got red dots for each other. It looks like DC has smallpox or something. It's not,
well, so the red
good.
dots are like all the blocks, which basically like, and for those of you who don't know, DC is pretty fucking small. Like it's the actual like city of DC. Is quite tiny in comparison to a lot of cities, and basically everything, I'd say a mile in each direction at least, or probably more than that, out like moving out from downtown where the White House and the Capitol are, is just red. Like it's just red. You know, everything's blocked off. They've put up these huge fences, and I mean the thing that I wanted to mention about the checkpoints is that you can be forced to show your ID, and because of the way that law enforcement shares information, this could come back to bite you if you have a tenuous immigration status. So just beware of that. If for some reason you work in DC, or you know of people who work in DC that have an unstable immigration status, they can be forced to show their ID, and then they can the law enforcement at these checkpoints can share that with ICE and then raid you later. So just a heads up about that.
But one little loophole is whenever you're asked for documentation, you can say, "You're not the boss of me," and that gets you out of it.
You're not my supervisor.
It's insane what's going on in DC right now. I feel so bad for the stores and everything that are down, like these little restaurants and things that are down basically where the Redacted studios are, which is 3 blocks from the White House. First, it was the pandemic, so everything was closed down. Then they started to slightly reopen, and there were Black Lives Matter protests and anti-Trump protests in that area that did smash a bunch of windows. So they started boarding up all of their businesses. So they've been basically covered with plywood since that time. Then you had the fucking fascist mobs come through, so they like double plywooded themselves, the stores, because they were trying to be closed for the rioting. And now they've literally just become an occupied zone for the U.S. military. So it's like those poor stores have gone through just every level of fucking hell. It's really fucked. Also, today is MLK Day, which we can see the continued whitewashing of Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy, his history, his reality. We've covered that a lot in the past, so we're probably not going to spend that long on it this time, but I did want to note that.
And also, I'm unclear. I've crowdsourced an opinion from the Twitterverse about this, and I've gotten some interesting responses, but I'm not sure if it's irony or if it's just like the ultimate trajectory of the U.S. experiment. But so for those who don't know, there's a giant Martin Luther King Jr. Statue in D.C.
Fairly new one.
It's very beautiful, and there's this really beautiful quote about from Martin Luther King that's there, and it's this really, really beautiful space right on the water, and and due to the threats of white nationalist violence in D.C., the U.S. Park Service and the U.S. Secret Service announced that MLK, that monument would be closed until after January 21st. So literally, you can't get to the Martin Luther King Jr. monument on MLK Day because threats of white supremacist violence.
Hey, and a violent police mob kicked occupiers out of Freedom Plaza in D.C., beat them and arrested them. Freedom Plaza. And they...
not recently.
No, these are not recent, but
right.
I'm just putting them on the list of irony. They put barricades around Liberty Plaza, which is where Occupy was in New York City.
Yeah.
But yes, in terms of the continued whitewashing, FBI and ICE have had some notable tweets of how wonderful Martin Luther King is, how they're acknowledging his legacy, and the FBI has like a quote on their like wall at the FBI headquarters that says like it's never the wrong time to do the right thing or something like that. And
unless it's assassinating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
I know.
In case it's always the right time to do that.
Literally, the FBI was involved in killing him. And in case you are new to our show or what have you, there was only one trial in terms of who killed Martin Luther King Jr. And they found, after hearing from 70 witnesses, the jury found that it was not James Earl Ray who was the scapegoat, but in fact was government agencies, including the FBI and the Memphis Police Department.
And here's the thing, if you look at what MLK was doing, it makes sense. But if you and this is why a lot of people don't believe, like, why would they? That would be absurd. Because you're not learning the shit that MLK was actually doing. You're learning that, MLK was just a guy that was standing up there being like, please don't hate black people. No, that's not. He was doing incredible work of tying issues together and connecting them to, for instance, the military-industrial complex, anti-Vietnam War work, tying them to capitalism, the oppression of the working class. Ruh-roh.
And getting groups to work together to fight against these things.
Yeah, and the people like to talk about how Malcolm X and MLK were butting heads a lot, but they became very close towards the end there, and there was a lot percolating in terms of working together and tying these issues together, whether that be war, halfway around the fucking world, or whether that be poverty here at home in the United States. There was so much interconnection there, and that's really what scared the shit out of the powers that be, that it wasn't just a matter of black folks listening to Dr. King and saying, oh, that resonates. It was just people in general that were resonating with that message, and that is incredibly dangerous for the powers that be. So yes, if you learn the whitewashed bullshit story of MLK, of course it doesn't make sense why the FBI would want to kill him or the state would want to kill him. But when you really dig down deep into what MLK was doing, then you really find that it absolutely does make sense. And you don't even have to dig that far. On the live stream yesterday, we mentioned, or one of the viewers actually mentioned, the letter from Birmingham jail that MLK wrote, which was definitely something that opened my eyes when I read it. I believe in my early 20s, and please read it, because I'm not going to ruin it by trying to trying to summarize it here. But one of the things that he talks about is that how it's incredibly dangerous. Of course, like the KKK is dangerous, but perhaps that's not even as dangerous as the well-meaning white liberal who says, "Yeah, no, I want you to have freedom, but could you wait because now is not a great time." And we see this in effect today, for instance, like, oh, yeah, sure. Like you've got progressive Democrats saying, of course, we believe you should have universal health care, folks, but now's just not the right time. So like, if you could just hold on while we pedestal the powers that be and continue on the same fucking cycle of destruction and oppression, if you could just hang on for that, then at some point down the road, we might be able to get you some basic fucking human rights.
Ask and you shall receive. Here's some from the letter from Birmingham jail. We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given up by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Frankly, I have never yet engaged in a direct action movement that was, quote unquote, well-timed, according to the timetable of those who have not suffered unduly from the disease of segregation. For years now, I have heard the word wait. It rings in the ear of every Negro with a piercing familiarity. This wait has almost always meant never. It has been a tranquilizing thalidomide, relieving the emotional stress for a moment, only to give birth to an ill-formed infant of frustration. We must come to see with the distinguished jurist of yesterday that, quote, justice too long delayed is justice denied. We have waited for more than 340 years for our God-given and constitutional rights. So there's a little piece of it.
The whole thing is that heavy, by the way, and
the whole thing's like 4 pages, but it's all that heavy.
And it's so brilliant, it's like irritating.
Yeah, and it all you can apply it like a stamp over everything that's happening today. Whether it's being told to wait for the force to vote. Now's not the time, which we'll talk more about that in a minute. But so many issues. It just fits with.
It echoes loudly. Well, and really, the past echoes loudly in the present. We wouldn't. You wouldn't be where you are right now without the past, and without the past, you don't know where the fuck you're going into the future. So we really need to, we need to get rid of the whitewashing, and really look at history as it was. Otherwise, we can't look at the present as it is.
So here's my segue. They had to kill MLK to shut him up, but nowadays they just do it by censoring social media channels and making sure that independent media can't actually report on things. I covered some of this in today's Moment of Clarity online. You can watch the live stream. But Jordan Sheridan was tweeting out that his outlet, Status Quo, which is an independent news outlet, YouTube would not even allow them to report on a gun rally that was happening in Virginia, that happened today in Virginia. Basically, they just tried to upload video. They weren't saying, yay, guns. They weren't saying, go shoot people. It was just literally, we are here and here's what's happening. Standard, like, local news affiliate. Basic reporting stuff. And YouTube said, you cannot post this because it seems to, be dangerous or be promoting violence or something like that. And this is now the standard that is being done. Apparently 70,000 QAnon followers, QAnon people were purged from Twitter, which, unless they're promoting violence, like literally saying people should be killed, which I'm almost certain there were not 70,000 doing that, that means 70,000 people were just purged for being dumb, which is like... America's all about being dumb. Like, most of the people here are dumb. So the idea that you just are purged if you're an idiot is, it's going to come back and just completely bite the ass of these tech, fucking oligarchs who think they can just shut up anything that is outside of the expected corporate reality, the expected corporate path forward. And speaking of that, I'm not going to spend much time on it here, but there is a new platform being built, despite everything trying to stop it. called Panquake that I did a little piece in their live event recently, or they tried to have a live event, but it turned out when they tried to go live that YouTube made sure that was impossible. So the video is now up though at panquake.com. I believe it's well, I know it's PANQUA key I'm just checking whether it's .com or not. Yeah, so panquake.com.
And this is why we never like edit this shit out, because I want y'all to be here for those moments. I want to share the joy with you.
I know, it really is no fun. I've been on other shows where literally like, I don't know, we had like a funny moment where the guy said something wrong. A friend of mine who's hosting the show, and they trip over a word and I make fun of it and they make fun of me, and then they cut all that out when they put it online. And I'm like, that was the best part of the whole
You're
thing.
like, where's the humanity? Come on.
So anyway, the idea behind Panquake, which I'm not creating, I just agree with the idea, is that it is blockchain based, and there is no like unitary executive who can just be like, banned, don't like what you're saying, you're banned, and it greatly decreases censorship. And so that's the idea. It's not out yet. It's still in development, but you can learn more about it. It's supported by Chris Hedges. Bill Benny is one of the programmers, the NSA whistleblower, Jimmy Dore, and many others.
Lee Camp.
I've heard of him, but I don't trust that motherfucker.
Shifty.
So anyway, I thought I'd throw that in there. Shall we continue on?
Yes, indeedy. So this is some good news. I know it's weird. Hold on. But last week, the Illinois General Assembly approved a sweeping criminal justice overhaul that would end cash bail and require cops to wear body cameras. That last part, it's like, wait, weren't they doing that already? No. But ending cash bail, this is really, really huge. And the other stipulation with the body cameras is that it said it would eventually require police officers to be equipped with a body camera. Okay, so first of all, the language there, eventually, what the fuck does that mean? Eventually, the sun will swallow the earth.
Was that in the bill?
No, I don't think they believe in that. And then the other thing is, would be equipped with a body camera. Well, I could be equipped with a fucking Uzi machine gun, but it doesn't mean that I'm using it. Like, equipped doesn't fucking mean anything.
Equipped is not enough. It needs to be permanently running.
So basically, this was the measure, which really, again, the ending cash bail is like the highlight of this. It was approved by narrow margins in the final, it was like 11th hour of the lame duck session, which for folks who don't know, that means like the session between the November elections and when the new lawmakers come in. And this is 100% because of the organizing by groups like Black Lives Matter and prison justice organizations. That is why this shit went through. It has nothing to do with these lawmakers waking up one day and being like, cash bail is kind of fucking horrific, isn't it?
For those of you who don't know, we covered this a lot on this past live stream that we did together because we were donating to a bail project. But cash bail is some draconian shit, all right? There are only two countries that still have cash bail because it just clearly and obviously punishes poor people. There is no rich person that has ever stayed in prison because they didn't have bail. So it's just to hit poor people.
Yeah. Now, this still needs to be signed into law by the governor. The governor did express support for quote, his willingness to change the laws that have failed the people of Illinois, end quote. Of course, we can't, count on that kind of vague comment to pull this through. But the fact that that the General Assembly voted on this at like 5 a.m, y'all, 5 a.m. Most of these people don't even want to get out of bed when the sky is falling. So to have the fact that people are voting on shit, and this also, I should take that back, however, because I also want to highlight that local politicians, in this case, state, the state politicians in Illinois, are easier and can not just easier to access, but easier to influence.
Yeah.
And this is so important because there are things that we can do on a local level.
Right.
And yes, I understand that these are, quote unquote stopgaps. They're not going to fix the world's problems of climate change and global capitalism. But these things will literally save people's lives because people have died in prison or been so traumatized that they later commit suicide because of their time in prison for only being there because they couldn't afford to get out of prison.
Or it just destroys their community, their family.
Absolutely.
Like, people get divorced because someone went away to jail for a year. They lose their custody of their kids.
Right.
Like, it just destroys life. They can't get jobs when they get out. One of the most censored stories in this year's Project Censored, which I'd want to cover more about sometime, but something like 25% of ex-inmates don't have jobs, are unemployed. Yeah. Because it's incredibly difficult to get a job to begin with, and then to get a job when you have ex-con, quote unquote, on your resume,
which ends up looking like a fucking bright red light in your job application.
Right.
Because of course, the idea that like, oh, you've done the crime, now you've served the time. That's not how it works. That shit follows you for the rest of your life, and you can never really get away from it.
And it's designed to do that. It's designed to solidify the class structure, to make sure that people, poor people tend to be arrested more. The cops tend to go after them more. They tend to spend more time in prison because judges give them harsher sentences. They can't get out because of bail costs. And then that follows them. And this is by design. It really does solidify the class structure.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is really an important step. As far as I know, there are no other states that have passed this kind of legislation. So definitely
there was something that I covered like a year ago.Maybe Philly was getting rid of cash bail.
But states.
Yeah, I don't think it's a whole state though.
Yeah. So yeah.
Hold on, states are the big ones. Wait, cities are the.
I believe it's the borough that's the large one.
California's a village, right?
Oh, they like to think so, don't they? Yeah. So yeah, would be really, really great to see this kind of shit take off in other states. And again, this is the kind of thing that happens when people organize and keep battering on an issue. So if the past summer of defund the police and these conversations about abolishing the prison industrial complex, if those hadn't happened, Illinois would not have had this 5 a.m. vote.
Right.
So it's super important to recognize the link, even though we're, 6 months past. The politicians move slow for the most part, unless they're doing something awful, like bombing people. If they're doing something good, they move super fucking slow.
When they're doing horrible shit, they move so fast. It's amazing.
It's like the tortoise and the hare. Yeah. When they're doing fuck shit, they are the hare. When they're doing good shit, it's like the tortoise going backwards. So you really have to keep pushing, and this is just such a great example of a time when that has created actual legislative change.
Well done, activists in Illinois. Impressive shit.
Amen.
And let's keep. Well, actually, I should probably stop for a second and say that thank you guys for supporting the show. We are only funded by you guys. There are no ads on here. There are no. There's nothing that you have to pay for in order to hear us. It's free content. So we love if you can support us because we are only supported by you guys. It's at patreon.com/commoncensored. COMMONCEN, SORED, Common Censored. And there's various tiers on there you can sign up for, and we do a little extra content every week. Eleanor's movie is at hardroadofhope.com. My stand-up, and it just won another award, by the way. My stand-up comedy special has just crossed the 200,000 view barrier. And it's, if you haven't seen it, you are one of the only people left in America. And it's at leecampamerican.com, but it's also on YouTube. And my book is at leecampbook.com. All right, I guess we'll keep it going. If you want to see the live stream we did this weekend, you can check that out at youtube.com/momentofclarity as well.
Yes, indeed. So I wanted to kind of get into this because it's something that people are, I don't know if debate is the right word, but
Caught up on?
it's like, okay, so it's kind of like an abusive relationship. And
Preach, sister.
the ultimate abusive relationship is the relationship that we have with the state. And oh my, is there a lot of gaslighting that happens? What? No. This is you're proud to be an American. That's what it means to not have health care and to work till you die and to not have any vacation and to never see your kids and
Cancer treatments are gay.
yeah.
That's what I hear. That's what someone told me.
And so basically, like, the point of me bringing that up is people get attached to what they feel is like that the good side of the state, right? When the state's like, hey, we're gonna do this, we're gonna make things better, right? And we love you, and that's why we have people like AOC and Ilhan Omar and the squad, y'all. We are here for you, we love you. And then they turn around and they fucking drop kick you in the stomach. And then 20 minutes later, they're like, that didn't happen, okay? That didn't happen. What happened was we're here for you. And you just happened to run in just as we were doing a celebratory kick, right? At how awesome we are and how much we love you and how much we're here for you. That's the basic situation. And so here's the thing. I really get, like, I totally get how fucking frustrating and angering and like, it is to see someone that people believed in, right? Like AOC. And I wouldn't say that I believed in her because I'm an atheist, but I would say that I expected good things. I was like hopeful. But she went the same way that I've seen other progressive people go because I've been watching this this sick factory line take good people or well-meaning people in and spit them out as fucking Nancy Pelosi creepers.
It's almost like a train on a track, and you're watching car after car after car go by, and then one of the cars goes, "Hey, follow me. I'm gonna go a different route." And you're like, okay, I think this one's going to go a different route. And then for some odd reason, it follows the tracks.
Right. A lot of analogies, y'all. Feel free to throw in your own.
Let me know if you want me to. I want to give some of the things AOC has failed on so that people don't think we're just saying it without backing it up at all. But
please do.
But I could do that now or later.
No, go for it. So I'm good on the analogies for the next 30
So like
seconds.
I like to say, this doesn't, people seem to, because exactly like you're talking about, people in an abusive relationship and they're like, don't say anything bad about so-and-so. Here's the thing. I'm not saying you have to despise AOC and, fucking want her to accidentally trip and fall into a tree. We're not allowed to talk about violence or we get censored by the platforms now.
Is that violence?
Tripping into a tree, yeah. No.
What, is it violence on the part of the tree or?
Yeah. If a tree, you don't want a tree to come get her. No, anyway. But AOC seems to be going the way. She keeps giving news signals and actions that show she is going the way of standard Democratic representatives, especially those who think they have who have aspirations for higher office. I'm sure she has plenty of people around her that say you could be president one day if you just follow this trajectory. And so anyway, it goes from, on her first day or before her first day in office, she showed up to the House and was literally part of a protest outside Nancy Pelosi's office. Actually went there and protested Nancy Pelosi. Nowadays, she not only voted for her and she calls her Mama Bear. She literally like tweeted that, or she either said or tweeted that Nancy Pelosi's the Mama Bear of the Democrats. And
Which I guess is true, but is that a good thing?
Well, Mama Bear is an affectionate term. It'd be one thing if she said she's the fucking bear. No, Mom. This is an affectionate term, and she not only didn't agree with force the vote, which is one thing. You could have disagreements with force the vote for Medicare for all, but actually got angry about it and called it violent to try and force the vote, try and force her to vote for Medicare for all or push a vote for Medicare for all.
But then she also used the same arguments that people with force the vote were using for why we need to impeach Trump. And I was like, but you can't use the arguments for universal health care as the arguments to impeach somebody who's leaving office in 5 fucking days.
Yeah, she literally used the same arguments. But anyway, she has been garbage, unlike Venezuela. When she was pressed about that, she says, I need to look into it. I mean, she, recent interviews said she doesn't know about pardoning Assange. So, and these are just a few. There was the famous or infamous tweet where she said John McCain was a man of unparalleled human decency. This is a guy who wanted to bomb every country around the world that he ever could find on a map.
I mean, he's unparalleled, but certainly not in human decency.
Anyway, we don't have to go through the whole list, but the point is she is not living up to the expectations that people had. Or
the promises she made.
And again, that doesn't mean she will never do anything positive. It doesn't mean that pressuring her couldn't be useful for other things. I'm okay if people want to keep pressuring her. But I think that it does fit in nicely with what you're saying about this being an abusive relationship where people want to just say, no, but she loves us.
Right. And oh my gosh, the woman of my dreams, right? Like this is the be all end all. No, it's not. And the other argument that's really frustrating that I've heard quite a bit is, well, we just need to support her more. We haven't been giving her enough support. Okay, I didn't realize that this was a fucking group therapy session for AOC. And second of all, this is bullshit. The whole concept of an elected representative, it's in the name, represent. Their job is to be the ambassador for the people. Their job is to support us and support what we want. I mean, I'm not her constituent, but, support what the people want. The fact that they don't is a systemic problem, which, is why the whole electoral politics gambit is problematic. But the fact that they don't doesn't mean that we just pinpoint AOC and say, well, look, this perfect flower, if we just support her, then we can just change the system from within just with the squad. No. And again, like, AOC and the Ilhan Omar, which somebody else pointed out the other day, like Ilhan Omar is the child of refugees, a refugee herself, has voted for war several times and for the military-industrial complex, and this really just speaks to the fact that, look, the empire has many faces. And I'm not some conspiracy theorist that like, oh my God, AOC is a CIA plant. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that like the machine does a really great job. It's got a lot of practice. It's well-oiled. It's streamlined. Has a lot of practice of taking people with good intentions and turning them in to the, like, basically another cog in the wheel of the system of oppression. And like you said, Lee, it doesn't mean that she's never going to do anything positive, that all her votes are going to be shit. My point is, it's not enough. It's not enough to discount the abusive relationship that we're in, that we need to get the fuck out of. And there's no amount of, hopes and prayers and fucking, support for your abuser that's going to change this. We need to walk away. We need to walk away from the complicity in this relationship. And that really means not making excuses when they beat the shit out of us. Instead, calling it out and saying, this is fucking unacceptable and we will not stand for this. As opposed to saying, oh, but they just need more support. When somebody punches me in the fucking face, I don't ask if they had a bad childhood or whatever the fuck. I just say, like, that was unacceptable behavior. I mean, I don't I haven't said that's unacceptable behavior, but I've thought that when I've gotten hit in the face. So this idea that when we're making excuses for the people who are oppressing us, that is fucked and is the ultimate abusive relationship, and it can't go on for our sake, not theirs, but for ours. We have to get out of this.
Well said, well said. And one more thing about AOC that I think kind of sums it up is people can point out some of the positive things she's done, but I think what's changed, the biggest thing that changed is when she came to office, she was clearly adversarial to the Democratic Party, the corporate Democratic Party. And she saw it as her job and maybe even her brand to be adversarial to them. Mm-hmm. She said she was going to promote primarying corporate Democrats by putting forward non-corporate Democrats. And she supported, for example, in her first term, Cori Bush, who is a Black Lives Matter. Now, I'm not saying everything Cori Bush says is wonderful either, but Cori Bush is a Black Lives Matter activist who was running for office against the corporate Democrat, and she lost last time. This time around, which she won, many of you may have heard her name recently because she just joined Congress, AOC did not support her, or at least did not publicly support her. And AOC has been backing away from this and to the point where I don't know if it even exists anymore, backing away from this adversarial relationship with the Democratic Party. She now wants to be very much aligned and part of the Democratic Party, the corporate Democratic Party, so that I think she can probably run for president or something, or, higher aspirations. But that's how they capture people who are outside of what's generally allowable.
Yeah, and one more thing on this. I've also heard the argument, which is interestingly enough an argument that I used to hear in the music industry too. Like, Eleanor, well, if you just stop talking politics now and write some love songs for your first album, then you can do whatever you want once you're like famous, and you can just do whatever you want. Yeah. And I'm like, no. Well, first of all, no, because they're gonna want what was successful, and if they own you, because of how record companies sign deals, then no, I can't. I can't circle back to humanity. That's not how this fucking works.
Circle back to humanity.
I've heard this argument.
That's what the second album will be called.
Right.
Return to humanity.
So I've heard the argument that, like, well, maybe she's doing what she feels she has to so that she can do what she wants later. But this is a stupid fucking argument.
With Obama, they said second term. It's in the second term.
Right, and Kamala Harris said the same thing. Well, the pressures of her former job, she had to do whatever what was expected of her, and that was to cage predominantly Black and brown people, and you go after parents if their kids don't show up in school because they're too poor. There was just so much pressure, A
lot of pressure.
And there's always this kicking the can of like, well, eventually they're going to do good once they do horrible shit to prove that they're a part of the group. But no, y'all, that never, again with the abuse. Like, well, he's going to beat the shit out of me now so that later he can prove by making me a nice pancake breakfast that he's a good person.
Well, yeah, no, once he gets that promotion, he's going to stop being so stressed and he'll stop beating me up. Or once he's just having a rough patch and he's going to be nice next year.
Yeah, y'all, it's like a Lifetime movie. Come on.
As Jim Gaffigan said, Lifetime, a network for women. If that's a network for women, why is there always a woman getting beaten?
Seriously? Oh, man. I don't even know. Does the Lifetime channel even exist anymore?
That I don't know.
It's been so long since I've watched TV.
All of these networks had a brief period where they thought, if we have a certain theme, then we'll gain an audience. And then they had that theme and they gained an audience. And then they realized that, what gains a bigger audience is reality clip shows of like Jersey Shore. And so they all just became Jersey Shore.
Oh,
some version or another. Like, like Court TV was the Real Housewives of New Jersey. And you're like, how is that Court TV? Or like Discovery was like the Real Housewives of Cave Times.
Fun fact, my former drummer in my band was on Court TV several times as an actor. Big black guy with like long dreads.
Times?
Yeah, Because he's a big black guy with long dreads. It was just like an easy casting job.
What did he do?
No, but that's the point. It's not real. So he
No,
was cast as the big black
As
guy
like
that
a
did something wrong.
As like a defendant?
Yeah. Like several times he was cast as like the big
Christ.
scary black guy that did something wrong.
Ugh.
Yeah, I hate to break it to y'all, but reality TV ain't real. But
What?
what? Yeah. I think the last time I watched Lifetime, I was coming down off of something, off of drugs, and I was just watching
I
it.
thought you were gonna say the Himalayan mountains.
Yeah, I had it on my phone. The reception up there is crap, though. Yeah, and I just remember watching it and being like, wow, even though I'm still really high, this is just
Garbage.
yeah. Like, it's not even okay to watch when you're, like, out of your fucking mind on drugs. Like, it's never good. Never good.
Yeah. I've tried many times to talk people out of reality TV when I find out they like a certain show, and I never succeed. Even though I'm like, you do realize, like, even if part of it were real, every time you see a reaction, like someone glaring at someone else, that didn't happen then. They got that from 3 days later, and they factored it, they cut it in, and like, it's all so fake. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But I digress.
Yeah. I was going to segue real quick because obviously the thing people were most unhappy with AOC recently was that she, not only failed to force the vote for Medicare for all, but seemed very not interested in basically asking for anything like, from Nancy Pelosi in order to vote for her.
If y'all take just one thing from this podcast tonight, please take this coming point because this is fucking incredible.
Yeah, so we know Congress has failed us and forced the vote, but it turns out, and I mentioned this on Redacted tonight, but now I'm taking a new tact of harping on it. Biden actually, and any president, could give everybody Medicare for all under Section 1881A of the Social Security Act. And in fact, there is a place in America that has Medicare for all.
Wait, via executive order?
Yeah, via executive order.
Meaning which means that he would not need congressional approval.
No Congress involved.
He just signs a piece of fucking paper.
Signs a piece of paper, everyone has Medicare for all. And there's actually a place in America that already has Medicare for all. Libby, Montana. Population 2006, something. And
so less than a Walmart.
Less than the average Walmart. And less than the weight of your average Walmart goer. And Libby, Montana.
Oh, man, I just snarfed my beer. That's awful.
Libby, Montana has Medicare for all because under this portion, stipulation in the Social Security Act, a place can be given Medicare for all if they are subject to environmental harm of some sort. And in Libby, Montana, it was the carcinogen pollution of a vermiculite mine. That's my favorite kind of mine, by the way. I collect vermiculites. So that's why they got it. But here's the thing, and if you saw my video on this, then you already saw this, but like I said, I'm gonna keep harping on it. We have all been subject to environmental harm.
Right.
Environmental. I can't remember the term they use actually in the bill, but anyway,
contamination.
Yeah, something like
pollution.
Yeah, something like that. But all the above. But for one thing, you got the pandemic. Okay, we've all been subject to that. Millions of Americans have had COVID-19
exposure.
Environmental exposure. That's the word. So if you're subject to environmental exposure of some kind, you can be given Medicare for all. All they have to do is sign a piece of paper, basically. And we've all been subject to COVID-19. If we haven't had it, then someone near us has. Millions of Americans have had it. So he could at least give everybody Medicare for all while the pandemic's going, for another year and a half, whatever. Furthermore, you have everywhere in America has been exposed to something environmentally that is harmful. You got microplastics, microtoxins, the stuff in our water. 2,000 cities have lead contamination in them, or elevated lead levels. You have smog. You have, did I already say contaminated water? You have, in New York City, they spray, and the lawmakers have just voted to stop this practice, but for years, like literally over a decade or 20 years or something, they've been spraying Roundup herbicide all over everything in public spaces, which is a carcinogen according to the WHO. In LA, you have the smog. I mean,
methane is constantly leaking all over LA County.
West Virginia. How about West Virginia? Have they had any environmental exposure?
Well, yeah, and so like this is. You could obviously make the argument, and when you first told me that, it seemed so vague. And I was wondering, like, why would that be so vague? And I'm not really sure, like, when that was written or how they.
The article by David Dayan, who does great analysis of these things, that reads things I would never take the time to read. David Dayan,
like
who's the editor of the American Prospect. You can all read the article there if you'd like. He says that at the time that it was passed, they basically kind of understood they were talking about Libby, Montana. But it doesn't say in the, in the stipulation, must be Libby, Montana.
Well, and that's the other interesting thing is that it is a federal
Social Security Act.
Right. So but that it just has to do with one bumfuck town, and yet it's written into federal law. That's fascinating. Of course, it's also fascinating that Libby, Montana is obviously very small, and judging by Montana, I'm guessing it's predominantly white.
Also their senator or whatever at the time was the head of like the budget committee or something. So.
Right. So places like, and my initial thought was like, Cancer Alley, anybody?
In Louisiana.
So yeah, I mean, the United States has the United States has, thousands of, hundreds of thousands of so-called sacrifice zones, but you could easily make the argument that the United States is a sacrifice zone to corporate malfeasance, considering the fact that corporations own our government. So, yeah, I mean, holy shit, this this tiny little snippet of legislation. Wow.
I have not spoken to anyone else involved in the Force the Vote movement, so don't take this as some sort of recommendation from on high, but I recommend we move Force the Vote to force the executive action. Or you can come up with something shorter, but I'm just saying it needs to be about forcing the executive action, because who wants to wait around for fucking Mitch McConnell and Congress to approve health care?
Well, right. And again, I feel like we're coming full circle here, like going back to MLK, like wait. Yeah,
it's not the time yet. It's not the time.
Yeah, not. And there was a funny meme floating around as well during the Force the Vote, and it was just like this lovely picture of these mountains, and then it said, like you see sometimes with like an inspirational quote, and then it just said, "Now is not the time." Liberal proverb. And it's so true.
Yeah, who didn't say now is not the time? Let's wait a little while. Is the FBI when they were planning to kill him. They were not like, let's wait a little bit.
Nope.
All right, let's get to what will probably be our last story here. We just mentioned the pandemic, so take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to end on a downer here, but here we are. So sorry.
Oh, well, here we are.
So LA has become a hotspot of sorts, not the kind of hotspot that you want to be. One person every 6 minutes is dying in Los Angeles.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like 1 out of 10 people has COVID or something. It's like ridiculous.
It is fucking mind-boggling. I don't even know what that means. 1 person every 6 minutes. I don't understand. Like, my brain can't wrap around that statistic.
LA folks, what are you fucking doing? Stop making out as a form of hello, okay? It's not good.
Well, and this really this when I read that, it reminded me of the of something I read. This was like back in the fall, but somebody had put up there, y'all, we never had a lockdown. we had poor people bringing you shit while you stayed at home. And it's true. Like, if you look at places that actually had lockdowns and had those lockdowns enforced and had, people able to stay home and not work and still be able to, to survive, those places are doing pretty fucking well right now. It's the places like our country where we don't see where the working class is expendable, where the idea of a lockdown is an affront against our freedom, but obviously shit like the largest surveillance network that the world has ever fucking seen is not. So it's places like this.
Only the masks are really invading our freedom.
Yeah, seriously.
That's all it is.
And these same people that are arguing that like it cuts off oxygen to their brain, it's like, how would you even tell? You sound just as fucking stupid with or without the mask. So it really just, again, like speaks to the fact that like the ability to tackle this issue is there. It's the same, it's the same thing with like fucking climate change. Like, we have the ability, and people talk about like with the issue of climate change, we need a warlike economy, which is kind of a reference to World War II, where we shifted our entire economy, to basically the war effort, and to contribute to the war effort. We could do that.
Yep.
We could shift our economy to focus on climate change. We could shift our focus to battling the pandemic and ensuring that everybody has access to healthcare and everybody has access to stay the fuck home and not go out. We have the ability to stamp this shit out in a timely fashion, but we don't.
Well, so we have an entire generation or multiple generations that have just been raised on selfishness, like pure and simple. There is almost no point are people taught about community or is community valued. I'm not saying there aren't people that enjoy their communities, but you have to be taught that it matters. Or like, I mean, even I don't want to do jury duty. I'm not going to go help out.
Well, I think that's also that's an interesting point, because
I'll help out with mutual aid. I'm not going to do jury
But see,
duty.
that's the thing. That's what I was going to say, is that there's a difference between participating in the structures of state and participating in the communities that are actually built of, for, and by the people.
Well put.
Thank you. I don't fucking like jury duty. I was on jury for jury duty, and I fucking hated it. And then they called me again when I moved to DC, and I wrote because there's the option of saying like why you shouldn't do jury duty.
You said I'm a black Nazi. They were like,
confuse your fucking algorithms.
They were like, what do we do with that?
No, I basically wrote and said that I believe that the U.S. justice system is the most fucking corrupt entity that has ever existed, and I can't honestly sit on a jury and believe that what I'm doing makes any fucking sense. And they never called me for jury duty.
What? Weird.
So, folks, it worked for me, apparently. Knock on wood. I mean, they never actually asked me to call in, so yeah.
It's like that time I was asked to be on that game show Blind Date, and I wrote, I have herpes all over my face. And they never called me. I don't know why.
Man, some people missed out.
I don't like reality shows.
Or blind dates.
Or blind dates.
Alrighty, folks.
Okay, thanks for joining us. We're going to head over to patreon.com/commoncensored and do a couple extra minutes, 10 to 15 extra minutes. Please join us over there. You make this show popular.
Over there.
See, I was going to say you make the show possible, and then you fried my brain by singing, and I said you make this show popular. Could you stop that for a minute, please? One thing at a time.
No.
All of Eleanor's stuff is at Art Killing Popathy.
I once got a package that said Art Killing Empathy.
Empathy? That's amazing.
I called them and I was like, what kind of monster do you think I am?
Art Killing Empathy. Art Killing Apathy is Eleanor's website. All of her work is over there. She has a new great article over there as well. And you can email us topics or thoughts at commoncensored@protonmail.com. We'll see you next time.
Act out.
Keep fighting.